Today is a big day for Dolphin Tales. As you've seen, we've done interviews with some great alumni telling their stories about their time here at the university and what's happened in their life afterward. And we've done those all virtually due to COVID. And so today, it's a big day for us. We are on campus, as you can see. A little windy day here, but we wanted to take a break from our interviews with the Alumni Spotlight. We've had some great stories from people from baseball, soccer, rowing, basketball, track and field, softball. I think I've got them all. And what we want to do today is take a break in the alumni series and bring in the athletic director, the man who runs the show here, Alex Ricker-Gilbert. Alex, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on, Pat. It's exciting to be here. I appreciate all you're doing for us. The one thing I will say is that as of last week, I am too a JU alum, as I just finished the MBA program here. So a little bit different of an alumni spotlight, but still counts.
Still counts.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I wish I would have known that. Well, Alex, like I said, what I wanted to do is, take a little bit of a different slant for the interviews. And we've talked to people who went through university as a student athlete. Obviously, in your role, it's much different. And you and I have become friends over the last few years. And, getting to know you and hearing the stories that you tell and your vision for the program and things like that, I wanted to make sure that that is all told today. So excited to have you on. And I'll tell you, as I was thinking through sort of the evolution of my relationship with you, I go back to, we met when I was still living up in Virginia, and then I came down over a spring break, and we were getting ready to move back, and you invited us to come look around. And we hadn't, my wife played soccer here, I played baseball just across the street, and we hadn't been back to campus in probably 5 years, maybe 6 years. And so you came and just showed us around, and we saw the improvements that happened university-wide. But the thing that really stood out to me about you was as we were going around campus, people actually knew who you were. And I thought that was very different from when I was here. I mean, honestly, I can't remember who the athletic director was at the time, and that's probably more on me than them. But to see you interact with the students was something that was just incredible. So what I wanted to start with was not necessarily how you got here, which we'll get to, but just what your overall interaction with the students is like.
That's my favorite part of the job, to be honest. And it's really been the hardest part of this year, is not being able to interact with the student athletes like we normally have been able to interact in previous years. Obviously with COVID, we're trying to make sure that they're protected, they're within their bubble, and so that means I can have less interaction with them. But at its core, being student athlete centered, and that might sound cliche, is what we strive to be each and every day. Our decisions for how we invest resources, where we invest resources, where we invest our time, are all focused on how can we impact positively the student athlete experience. And we can do that if our mindset is the student athletes are at the center of everything we do. And so what we've said for the last 5 years is we're going to be student athlete centered. We're going to be coach driven. What that means is our coaches are going to have the greatest amount of impact on the student athlete experience because they're around them all the time. They're really a teacher or a mentor as well as a coach. And so our sort of mission has to be driven through them. And then administratively, myself and our staff, who are outstanding, we're just here to assist, right? We're here to assist our coaches, to assist our student athletes, to make sure that we remain student athlete centered, that we keep the students at the center of everything we do. And if we do that, I think to your question, the relationships will come, right? And that's what I love the most about being the athletic director at JU, is you get to organically have relationships with our student athletes. And in 2021, I guess that's the year we're in, that's what I miss the most. Sure. But it'll always be at our core.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think to maybe frame this a little bit is talk through your evolution of your responsibility here, because you didn't come in as the athletic director.
Right. So I got here 6 years ago, November 2014. as the Associate AD for Compliance and Student Athlete Services. So I had oversight of academic support and compliance and student athlete development and leadership and the SAC. You've probably heard of Student Athlete Advisory Committee. So the sort of the internally focused areas of the department. And I got here because I had prior relationships at different schools with some of our coaches, and they had recommended me for the job. When I got here, I was responsible for developing those areas, really building a more robust academic services department, and that was really spearheaded by Lauren Seavis. I just gave her sort of the tools to be able to run with, and she's now our Deputy Athletic Director. And similarly, develop a robust compliance program, a robust compliance education program. And we went through it in that first year. It was a lot of learning, a lot of growing. We had some issues in those areas, quite candidly. We had our football infractions at the time, dealing with financial aid that we worked our way through and got better because of that. But after about a year, our AD at the time, Dr. Donnie Horner, who is a mentor of mine, and President Tim Koss, they approached me maybe October 2015 and said, Alex, we're thinking about naming you the AD after this year. We think you've done a good job. You've been able to solidify those areas. We'll provide you the right mentorship along the way. And I had just turned 28 at the time. And so honestly, it was a dream of mine, but I was like, whoa, I was, okay, what am I going to say? No? Right. So I was excited, but at the same time, it was a big sort of undertaking to start to think about and process. And as I said, Donnie was a great mentor. President Koss was a great mentor. I really started to learn the ropes throughout that year from Donnie. Did more than just my role as a compliance administrator, as the academic administrator. I spent a good bit of the spring visiting other athletic directors. Okay. Lee Reed at Georgetown and Keith Gill at Richmond at the time, and Troy Austin, who's now at Duke but was at Longwood at the time, and Jeff Hathaway, who was at Hofstra at the time, to really pick their brains about what am I getting myself into. And really starting to focus on what my vision would be. And it was what my vision was always going to be as how I came up, and that was to focus on the student athlete. And so that's what we've tried to do, and that's what we're able to do in an intimate environment like JU. And so in April 2016, I was named athletic director, and it's been just short of 5 years now.
Yeah, I keep telling people, when I introduce you or talk about you, I say, the new athletic director, I have to keep reminding myself you've actually been doing this for a while, but maybe it still feels new, maybe not, I don't know.
Depends on the day. Yeah, depends on the day, depends on the year, depends on the month. It's sort of like this year, right?
Right.
Sometimes it feels like it's flying by, other times it feels like it's standing still, other times it feels like it's felt like 5 or 6 years. So
there you go.
That's how the tenure has gone.
That's right. Well, I know there's a lot, I don't want to say shake up, but I know you basically got right to work. And I remember that was one of the first, I guess, introductions of you with seeing some of the things that were happening within the athletic department. I know, you hired Chris Hayes, who was the assistant coach my senior year, so I got 1 year with him. And so that was kind of the first time where I saw, okay, who is this guy? And I've seen a lot of the decisions you've made, again, the facilities and just the offerings that the student athletes have. So talk to me a little bit about some of the I guess, things you're most proud of in the last 5 years.
I think we've made a lot of mistakes, but I do think we've done some things that, again, going back to sort of our core mission and our core values, which you helped us with very early on to develop, which are put others first, exceed expectations, be original, be a part of the whole, foster growth. Those are really what we've tried to focus on here, as well as being student athlete centered, and I think it's sort of all organically tied together. I think we've done a really good job hiring the right people to sort of fit our vision and our expectation to try to make our student athlete experience. It's not going to be perfect, but better each day, each week, each month, each semester, each year. Coach Hayes is a perfect example. That was an early hire for our baseball program. He's done a fantastic job. John Galloway was an early hire with the men's lacrosse program. I think that was the first coaching hire I made. And we've extended the right people and kept the right people and have been able to keep people like Scott Manzi, who you've worked very, very closely with, and people like Lauren Seavis. And, so we've been able to keep a core group of people that have really bought in to that expectation and hire others like Matt Moretti in media relations. And so I think our people are our number one asset and the thing I'm most proud of, because our most valuable resource is our human resource, and I think we've done a pretty good job getting the right people here. You can get people anywhere, but the right people are what's most important.
It's just amazing to see, like I said, just visually when you come onto campus to see the facilities. I mean, they're bigger. Not only are they better, but they're just bigger. Like, we're looking across, we can see the baseball stadium and lacrosse and soccer and all the sand volleyball. We have all these things that are bigger just visually, but then they're also so much more improved, which is great. I mean, that's what you want. There's a little jealousy factor for me and my wife and the people we played with, but that's what we want as alumni. We want to see, obviously, the department and the university as a whole getting bigger, getting better. But it's not just the facilities, which are obviously important, but we've seen a focus, like you said, more student athlete centric, to help them round out, not just go to school and go practice and play. The chiropractic care that you have, nutrition, mental health counseling, these are just things that we didn't have available, which is incredible. And I know another thing that you kind of mentioned was the academic support. Obviously that was always important, and we always strive to have a great GPA as a team, and obviously individually, but I know that's one thing that you've really pushed hard on, something that you're very proud of.
Yeah, I think we'd be naive to not make academic success, and really we'd be running counter to the university's mission and really what the president has set as the expectation in the Board of Trustees, to not put academic success, career trajectory as sort of our number one priority. And we've got a great staff. We've got great coaches that have bought into making sure our student athletes are succeeding in the classroom and care about succeeding in the classroom. And that doesn't start at JU. That starts with who we're recruiting, right? And so the expectation is to recruit a certain type of student athlete who's going to care about academics and is going to represent us well in the classroom and once they graduate. And so that's where it starts. It's really the people. The student athletes have obviously been outstanding, but we've tried to set the tone as, hey, look, this is a priority. Academics are a priority. Your expectation is to do well, and it's not just to get a 3.0. That was maybe the expectation of 4 years ago. When we got here, the department GPA was a 2.97. This past spring, it was a 3.5. And so, pretty extraordinary accomplishment for our student athletes. We think we've provided them the right support, the right leadership, but really, they've also owned that. The bulk of the credit needs to go to our student athletes for buying into sort of what we believe in, and ultimately it's what they believe in. And so I couldn't be prouder of how they've acquitted themselves in the classroom and outside the classroom.
And you mentioned the bulk of the responsibility, I guess, being on those student athletes. And one thing that we actually had Ivan Gunder on in our previous episode, and he's principal at Riverview High School, just talking about how does he manage leading his students through a year like this year. I mean, there's just no amount of preparation or planning could have gotten anywhere close to what actually happened this year. So from your standpoint, it's just amazing to see the level of success that you had as a department. And I think that probably goes from everywhere, from the administration, the coaches, the student athletes. But talk to me a little bit about. I think it'd probably be not a great thing to just skip over the fact that it is 2020 and COVID happened. So how did you guys manage it? What went through trying to get everyone through this semester?
Yeah, it's continuously evolving, and we still don't know there's still a lot more that we don't know than that we do know, right? And it's funny you mention Ivan, because I talked to Hugh Durham, his coach, maybe a couple weeks ago. Hugh and I have become pretty close. He was the AD here for a couple of years, and he said in his voice, which Ivan imitated, but I will not. He talked to me about that exact thing. Nowhere in you're coming up in school or athletic administration or the AD guidebook. Did they ever talk about Did they ever talk about dealing and handling a pandemic? And honestly, there's no magic science to it. I think it's really just being there for each other, right? It's being collaborative. It's being communicative and open with your coaches and your staff about what's going on, all the way back to March, really. When we knew nothing, we still needed to be able to have open conversations about not knowing anything, right? Having that open line of communication to say when we do know more, or as things evolve, or when we will be in touch. And we did that with our coaches and our student athletes, and we continue to do that with our coaches and our student athletes. And both those groups and our staff this semester have been or were extraordinary. We put a lot on them. We asked them to really be mindful of their interactions with people outside the department, outside their bubble, outside the university, about wearing a mask, about keeping their distance, about making good decisions, about not gathering in groups, right? About not being social. When a lot of college for these student athletes and students is to be social.
Right.
And you have to give them a ton of credit. We had very little issue from a COVID perspective throughout the semester. And the coaches carry that message, the student athletes delivered. But at the same time, I think a lot of it was they want to play. And this was an opportunity for them to come back to school, to be in a structured environment, to go to class, to be able to work out, to be able to hone their craft and get ready for when competition does come. Because the way I put it to our coaches and our student athletes was every day that we're able to practice, we're getting a leg up on a good chunk of the country. Right? Because not everybody is able to participate like we've been able to participate, practice like we've been able to practice. Our basketball programs were here since early July. That was a leg up on a lot of other people throughout the country. So the longer we can go without interruption or without disruption, the better off we're going to be when it is time to compete. And so I think, again, the student athletes and the coaches and the staff deserve all the credit for carrying that message. And I couldn't be prouder of what they did this semester during a time that has been like no other time in the history of college athletics, in the history of higher education. And I was just there cheering them on.
That's right. 2-0 start, right?
Men's basketball's 2-0. The women's basketball team had a road swing against two big opponents. We're going to welcome them home this Saturday. But yeah, we had a nice little opening week for men's hoops.
That's fantastic. So on the drive over here, kind of newsworthy, not specifically for JU, but they're talking about Dave Caldwell being released from the Jaguars. And on 1010, they were talking about the identity of the team. They were talking about how they really need to figure that out. And I think that's one thing that you worked hard on when you came into the leadership position, something that we talked about early on. It's something that you drive around this campus, and even when I still talk to people about playing at Jacksonville University, they're like, oh, is that D1? Oh, who did you play? And you have to explain, like, yes, it's the Atlantic Sun, and it's D1, and we played all the big schools in Florida and all the big schools in every other conference. And so there's a little bit of mystery, which I think is a good thing in some ways. But talk to me a little bit about the identity that you're trying to drive for the athletic department overall.
Yeah, I think it just starts with, our student athletes, our coaches, our staff are going to do things the right way. Knock on wood, you very rarely see us in the news for the wrong things, right? We're going to take care of business off the floor, off the field, in the classroom. We're going to be respectful in the community. We're going to wear and represent Jacksonville University, the city, our families in the way that our families would want us to represent all those entities. And so that's first and foremost. And I think from a competitive standpoint, we're going to try to be hard-nosed, tough. And I think baseball, your sport, has really always sort of embodied that. And as a department, I think we've really bought in being resourceful, trying to succeed through unconventional ways. That's one of our core values of be original, right? It's okay, if we can't get there this way, what other way can we get to the point where we want to get to with in the right way, doing the right things. And so being unconventional in order to succeed, putting others first. We're going to ensure that it's team and department and university and city over self. And so I think toughness, I think togetherness, I think resourcefulness, I think all of those things are who we're trying to be. And the overarching identity of that is that we're always going to we're not always going to succeed, but we're always going to try to do things the right way.
I know Manzi was talking to former head coach Terry Alexander, and he mentioned that exact point was the unconventional ways that you have to get things done because, there's just not all the resources available. And so doing things in an unconventional way. So I think that's great that's sort of at, department wide.
Yeah. And that's life. Right? After our student athletes and when our staff and whatever they go on to do next, whether it's here or elsewhere, there's going to be adversity, there's going to be hurdles, there's going to be stretches where things don't go exactly how we plan them, and that's just life. And so college is preparing us for life. And so our student athletes, I think, are coached that way and will continue to learn that way. And again, being a student athlete, as Ivan said the other day, it really has prepared, hopefully, us for what's next in our careers and our families and whatever might be after JU. It'll help us grow during our time at JU.
So talk to me a little bit about that transition, because I know, and we were just talking about it before we started, the transition from being a student athlete to whatever that is. And I know a lot of people don't just jump into the career that they're going to have for the rest of their life. I know I certainly didn't, but you were talking, I played baseball from 5 years old, I guess, till 21, 22 years old. So that was, really part of my identity. It's what I had. I had, the team, the camaraderie, the structure around that, and then I got done and it was like, now what? And so talk to me a little bit about what, besides the things which you've already said, getting them ready throughout their time here, but what are you as a department or maybe individual coaches doing to help the student athletes take at least that first step into the real world?
You mentioned early mental health support being something that we try to provide during our time, or during our student athletes' time at JU. And what I think you see nationally, and I think it's no different here, is that the most common mental health issue our students have are that the sport is their identity, right? And if they come out of high school and they're the superstar, and then they come to JU and they're trying to fit in and find their role, that identity can come into question. And so coaching them through that and having the resources there in the moment when they are struggling is so crucial. And what you're seeing is this growth in support throughout the country for not only student athletes, but students making that transition from high school to college, and similarly from college to whatever's next. And so I think that growth or that coaching needs to start early on in a student athlete's career in college. Now, throughout their time, we try to provide them programming, or we do provide them programming through our initiative called Dolphin Life Development. And Dolphin Life Development is programming run by Lauren Sievis and her team to prepare our student athletes for more than just their sport and just what's going on in the classroom. Whether it's resume building workshops, whether it's graduate school, whether it's media training, whether it's how to interview, whether it's how to write an email, things that we might take for granted that are critically important as we progress through how to dress, as we progress through our time as collegiate student athletes. And so that, I think, is something that has been extremely beneficial that we've added over the last 4 or 5 years. We program based on where our student athletes are in college. Freshman year, it's how do I make the transition from high school to college, right? Sophomore year, it might be how do I get an internship? Junior year, it's what should I do next? Should it be potentially grad school or look for what I might want to do post-college? And then senior year, it might be interview prep or resume writing prep. And so they've done an extraordinary job. I don't deserve any of the credit. It's Lauren and her team in developing programs to equip our student athletes for more than just their sport and what's going on in the classroom.
Right. Yeah, and that's obviously hugely important because, like I said, not no one, but a lot of people get done and they've got their chosen major and they may find out that they're going to go complete 180 and do something so different. And so to have those basic life skills, like you said, that maybe you take for granted, that I know a lot of people just had to learn on the fly. And so to have that training is incredible. Again, along with everything else that you guys are doing. So let's talk a little bit about the future, a little visioning. Obviously, we've got the groundbreaking on the basketball practice facility going on just down the road. Talk to me about your vision for athletics overall, and that can be any time period.
Yeah, I think to try to picture the future in this environment might be more difficult now than ever. But I honestly think it's once we get through this and get back to whatever normal will be, it's just going to continue to be consistent and laser focused on providing an opportunity and an experience for our student athletes that they've never had before. That's from an academic perspective, that's from a programmatic perspective, that's from a competitive perspective, all with the idea that our student athletes are going to be at the center of everything we do. And our resources that we try to provide and create for them are going to be focused on them. For example, this summer, despite all this, we were able to expand our weight room, double the size of our weight room and our athletic training room. And so it's really going to be to continue to focus on enhancing the student athlete experience with the right people in place and continue to grow and elevate sort of what we've been able to do. Our athletic department is well supported by our board of trustees and our president, and the idea that we can be the front porch and the driver of sort of our market share in the community can be driven through athletics.
Yeah, and there are things, and certainly it's elevated over the last even decade. And there's just so many things that are wonderful, and this is maybe like the commercial spot of the interview, but you've got the river, the proximity to downtown, the proximity to the beaches. I remember my first time coming onto campus. I came for TA's winter baseball camp. I was getting recruited by Joe Fletcher, came up, and I remember walking in and walking up into the grandstand there. It's looking around like, this place is beautiful, and the weather. I remember over spring break, we were a couple 10, 12 games in. You'd have people from the Big Ten coming down to play us, and that's their first time outside.
Yep.
And they're looking around at the sunshine. We're like, what's the big deal? We've been outside for months.
Yep.
So there's just so many things that the university offers, and I think to your point, the more that you can do each and every year to enhance that experience, and it's the visible things, and it's some of the more intangible things that you guys are doing. So. So with that, obviously you need alumni support. And I think, for me personally, just from my point of view, I've seen things get a lot better. When I left, there was kind of that period where It's a big chunk of us. We all, graduated, and we were trying to figure out life, and maybe the university was trying to figure out how to connect with us. I think there's been a lot of improvement there, and I think the show is obviously helping. But talk to me a little bit about alumni relations and some of the stuff that you guys are doing to get the people that are, 20 plus years and some of the more recent graduates.
Yeah, I think we have grown in that area. And I think a lot of it is consistency and continuity, right? It's having people in position with a plan to connect and establish relationships that maybe we haven't done the best job over time at establishing and keeping. And it's all about touch points. It's all about communicating. It's all about not connecting with somebody with your hand out, right? I think that is extremely important in really engaging with folks, because you want them to be engaged and want them to remember why it is they loved the university when they were a student, while they'll always love the university. And it's got to be genuine, and connecting either with a phone call or with just an update, a newsletter about what's going on in their college or in their sport or with their favorite faculty member. It's got to be genuine, and it's got to be something that doesn't look like it's transactional.
Right.
And I think Scott Bacon, our head of advancement, he used to be in athletics. He's really established that culture. And we want to be relational with our alums. We want to be connecting, truly connecting with meaningful outreach with our alums, and not just looking for a transaction, because their time here was much more than that. Their time here was 4 years of their life, maybe 5 years of their life, 3 years of their life, depending on their program or what they did. And that was obviously impactful for them because of the amount of time. Could be positive, could be negative, could be a little bit both, but it was impactful. And so we need to make sure we're reaching out to them and connecting with them, and really understanding what it is they loved about the place, what it is they'd love to see happen, what it would take for them to get back here to talk about and see what it is you've talked about, the beauty of the campus, what we've been able to do from a facility perspective, from an academic perspective. And so it's really tapping into their passion in a genuine way. And I think, again, Scott and his team have really started to establish that culture. And I think that's why you're seeing that area of the university and more connectivity with our alums happen in this moment.
And I'll absolutely echo what you said, and I tell people this all the time, and why we became friends in the first place. I was living in Virginia. Football was playing Liberty, one weekend, and I got an email out of the blue from you saying, "Hey, I asked if there was anyone in the area, and let's go meet for coffee." And I thought for sure it was going to be a solicitation, or let's get you re-engaged with the university. And it was just a genuine get to know you, which was much more important. So I'd like to thank you for that. And it's a feeling on campus now that is much different than I think people would expect or maybe experience. It is that genuine connection. It's not all about your handout, trying to get a check, trying to do whatever. It's about bringing people back into the community, and something we talked about on a call once. As a group, it's more about the connectivity and finding ways that alumni can give back. That could be a donation, that could be something else, just giving their time or helping mentor students, whatever. So I think the importance of that message is that to have alumni that still care about their sport, or the university, or the athletic department overall. It's not just about money. There's a lot of different ways for alumni to come back, give back, and still be a part of it without just a financial donation.
Yeah, it's about passion and loving our university, and connecting with that sort of common bond. That is Jacksonville University. That is the school on the St. John's, which is so special to a lot of people.
That's right. All right, so final question. What is the thing you're most excited about going into 2021? You can't say COVID being over because that's kind of a gimme, so.
I told my fiance Hillary that I might not be home at all starting January 4th because I'm going to be on campus, probably hanging out in my office and going to games. And so What I'm most excited about is the spring and looking forward to, obviously we have basketball going right now and that's fantastic, but it looks like we're going to have all of our sports going at once come spring 2021, and I will love nothing more than seeing our student athletes doing and getting back to doing what it is they love to do. And that's competing for each other, with each other, and for our university. And as Duncan said right before this interview, I will be right there screaming my face off for them and probably at the officials.
Well, Alex, thank you for your time. I'm glad we got you now before the madness of the spring starts. It sounds like you're going to be pretty busy coming up in the next few months. So you're one of the guys that we certainly had on our early list of people that we wanted to talk to. It means a great deal to me to have you join us on this show. And again, just thank you. We'll certainly have you back.
Thank you, Pat. And can't thank you enough from all of us at the university for what you've done with this program, with this podcast. It means a great deal for you to be volunteering your time for the Dolphins, to really connect with our alums, with our folks, with our supporters, means a great deal. And so we thank you too.